This one idea that I'm going to drop here is ultimately going to be of value to anyone who actively desires to use their own voice to authentically generate an income without relying on AI to create your voice or clone your voice, or even to generate your scripts and things like that. And so this is something that I've started doing, and I have given an umbrella name for the process. I call the process I got a little distracted for a second because I was picking up a gig. Something popped up on my other device. And the process is Lo-Fi Audiobook Podcast. And at first, when I started doing the Lo-Fi Audiobook Podcast, and I got to drive to this location, it was simply me sitting inside of places like a place that I went to for the second time today, 2 days in a row, which I haven't been there in a couple months actually, which is called Badass Coffee of Hawaii in Virginia Beach. It's actually one of my favorite places to go, and I caught up with a couple people there today. And what I would do is I would sit in the cafe and just hit record, and then start either reading or speaking about some topic that I am passionate about. So I'd either read one of my books or stream of consciousness, as I'm doing now, and record it, and then post it just as it is without any editing to my podcast platforms. And just like now, in other podcast recordings that you will hear, like this one, I'm in my car right now. I was just parked at the Red Wing Park in Virginia Beach. And so now I'm driving. And so you might hear the sounds of engines. You might hear other cars outside. If a siren goes by, cool things like I'll open up my window, open up the other window. I just like doing that. I don't know. There's something about it. I'm an audiophile. And so this idea that I'm telling you about here, the Lo-Fi Audiobook Podcast, has spawned from so many different exposures that I've had to various different media. And I do want to make a note here. I got a membership or a subscription to a service called Hiro, HIRO.FM, and didn't realize that I already had the power to do what I'm explaining with Spreaker, which is the podcasting software that I use, that I have a subscription to. I have the Anchorman level, which is $50 a month. I'm not affiliated with Spreaker directly. I do earn money when people listen to my podcasts that have ads on them. And if someone pays for a membership, like for example, this podcast is going to be put behind a paywall because the information is valuable, and this is how I'm building a business. This is part of my business offering, is to share ideas such as this one with people. So, but that's as far as it goes. I'm not an affiliate, meaning I don't, if you sign up for Spreaker, I'm not going to get money off of it through some link that I'm sharing with you or anything like that. If there are links in the show notes of this podcast or the description of the main podcast, that it should clearly tell you whether or not I'm getting any compensation for something, but that's just part of this whole media business. So the thing that Hero presented, and I realized that I already had, and then I started doing it myself, is that having a podcast software like this, you can forego using Amazon's Audible, for example, and simply create podcast series of your books by reading it yourself and then putting it behind the paywall for whatever different level you want. Or you could simply just put a bunch of ads on it if you want to go that route, and get some pay that way. The way that I have it structured is a dual way for some of them, that basically I have a few of my books that I've read, my own voice, and that are available on various different podcasts that are named simply after the book. So I can make as many podcasts as I want. And so I've done a podcast for each different book or each different subject that I've had for things that I've published and created. And there are ads on them. And then people have the option to join the supporters club if they want to remove the ads. So you can listen to it and download it, but it will have ads on them. But if you join the supporters club, you can listen to it without any ads. So Spreaker has made that option available, which they don't promote it this way, but this is another way of sort of thought hacking the idea and using the software for a way that it may not necessarily have been intended. And so authors and creators can read their own audiobooks in podcast software and put it behind a paywall and or put ads on it. And so now you have these two layers of earning income from your book. You write the book, you read it in the recording, and you can split it up into different episodes. Like every chapter can be an episode in itself. So a person can listen to, one chapter a day whenever they have time. And so you have a way, based off of a book that you've written already, to create a paid audiobook. And like I said, I call them lo-fi audiobook podcasts because I record them in various different environments. And like this environment, man, just getting out of this Red Wing Park here, just trying to get across General Booth Boulevard, it's taken so long. I only just now have been able to drive across and get out of there. That's crazy. All right. So that's it. I mean, now, let me summarize this. This is the valuable part. What I'm saying is that you don't have to sign up for and pay all kinds of heavy fees for various different either audiobook readers, voiceover actors, 11 labs for AI to read it, so on and so forth, all this stuff. You can read it yourself, which there's a whole market for people who would rather have the author of the book reading, even as imperfect as it is. And you can create a whole series of lo-fi audiobook podcasts. That's what I'm calling them. You don't have to call it that. That's just my branding. That's just what I call it because these ideas come to my head. But you can create your own audiobook podcasts. They're podcasts that each episode is a chapter of your book or a section or a subchapter of your book. And there can be ads on them where you can earn some money, or you put it behind a paywall, depending on how you want to get paid. How much do you want to get from it? And how much can you promote? I have a bunch of them that are on there that are available for anybody to listen to, but they have ads on them. And if people don't want to listen to the ads, then they can pay the fee for the supporters club and remove the ads. There are some of them that I'm putting up now that are going to be completely behind a paywall, so that people will have to pay to listen to the books at all. And that's how you, that everything is okay with that. You can build a business like that. That is you selling your audiobook. That is as simple as it is. So what I am talking about here is a way for you to earn money from your own intellectual property. Because at least the podcast software that I have, and I I don't use any other ones. I've been with Spreaker since 2014. And you can use a podcasting software that has an ad share service that Spreaker does, and or a supporters club that Spreaker does, to monetize your audiobook, which is just monetizing your book. So if you've written a book, or even articles, like I've done this with research papers that I've written, and I've simply read them into the podcast section by section and published them, and then monetize them with ad share. And I've experimented with putting them behind a paywall completely. So that's it. Create your own audiobooks and put them behind a paywall, and then tell people about it. Now, of course, that the difficult part of that is the promotion, the marketing, the advertising, getting people to listen to it. But it can be done. You can do this for yourself and build your own business. And especially because one of the ways that a lot of people are consuming book content now is through audio. I was just speaking to a gentleman earlier named Darryl. We were sitting at, I was about to say Buzzies, but we were sitting at Badass Coffee. Buzzies, by the way, is the name that I use for Badass Coffee in my novels that I'm writing now. And we were talking about various different things, AI, and one of them was how people are listening to audiobooks and how a lot of people aren't reading anymore and aren't capable of even reading because of the whole taking off of audiobooks. And I'm not saying that a lot of people who listen to audiobooks aren't capable of it. We were just making a point that a lot of people are consuming book content in audiobook form. And so, and this is true, this is one of the trends that are happening, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. And so this is a way that if you're an author, to read your book, doesn't matter where, in your car, as long as the other noise, the lo-fi part of it, which is what I just simply call the noise, right? If there's something in various different industries, but there's a signal to noise ratio. The signal is what you want people to hear. Like my voice that you're listening to right now is the signal. The noise is the rest of the stuff around, literally the environmental noise, like the sound of my engine, the windows opening and closing, and the ones that I did at Buzzies, aka Badass Coffee, the machines going, the clanking, all that stuff, the people talking, that's the noise. And so as long as your signal, though, is strong and people can clearly hear the book that you're reading, that's what matters. A lot of people aren't going to nitpick about it, especially for indie authors and indie producers of these things. And also, I'm predicting that people are going to want a lot more real like this. There is what is considered to be a lot of AI slop out there, and a lot of it does come from the top companies in the world, like 11 Labs and other places like that. And I have nothing against them. It's just I have taken the position that I believe that everything should be human-centered, and AI should be our assistants. We should be using it as our assistants to help us out with it. And I've given many examples of this before. I even wrote and published a book about it called The Human Signal, which you can find on Amazon.com, and you can also find it in my bespoke bookstore, books.by/uniquilibrium. And both of those links you can find through my website, worldreadingclub.com, which I'm going to put this podcast on for now, and then I'll put it behind the paywall later. But it's about your stream of consciousness and your own voice and your own ideas being the creator, the generator. You are the human generator of the intellectual property, not the AI. But then you utilize and use the AI to help you with the other things, the dissemination, to amplify your voice, to help you get it out there. But you are the one creating. Do not let AI create for you. You are the creator. Whether you think it's good or bad or indifferent, or whether other people think that, it doesn't matter. the more you practice being a creator, the better at it you will get. Then you use AI to help you to amplify that. That's the stance that I'm taking. It doesn't matter if you or anybody else thinks it's good or bad. Just be confident to do it. Be a human creator. Let it be a human signal amongst all of the AI noise out there. And I'm going to use AI right now to make a transcript of this and to help me to find the best tags, title, and descriptions so that more people will find their way to this information. But once they get there, to the heart of it is me, a human being who created this, who understands this information from the fact that I've been experimenting through trial and error, through using my heart and soul and my own creation and my own brain to bring this to you. And once again, what is that? I'm saying that you as an author, as a creator, can create your own audiobooks, and that's what you want to market it as, because that's the trend right now. People are gravitating towards audiobooks, and you can make your own lo-fi audiobook podcasts by simply reading your books and or articles in a podcast form and serializing it. That is, making the earliest episodes appear first in the podcast so that people can just press play and then it'll automatically go to the next if that's what they want to do, and then putting it behind a paywall and or adding ads to it. And like I said, the layer that I have is many of mine are already free to people to listen to, but they have to listen to ads, usually at the beginning, certain points in the middle, and then at the end of the podcast. And then even when people download it, the ads go with them, so you can't escape the ads. The only way to escape them is if you pay for Supporters Club to remove the ads, and then you have access to ad-free episodes. But this is the gift, this is the gold. So anybody who's going to hear this before it goes behind the paywall, you're lucky. This is really great information. This is how I'm building a business. This is working. You can do this. And there's another book that I wrote about this called The Sovereign Frequency, that talks about building your $500 a day empire. And if you think about $500 a day, that's $15,000 a month. That's $180,000 a year. So think about that. I'm Hakeem Ali Bokus Alexander, presenting this for World Reading Club.